In this programme, Adela Ukar will be exploring the ancient island of Crete. But first, I'm in a country that for decades has been policed by UN peacekeepers, patrolling what since the fall of the Berlin Wall is the world's last divided capital city. Yet millions of people come on holiday every year to this ethnically divided Mediterranean island. That's because it's hot and sunny on the beaches and there's lots of fantastic things to do and see here. Welcome to Cyprus! Cyprus is the easternmost island in the Mediterranean, located 50 miles off the coast of Turkey, between Europe and the Middle East. Starting my journey in the party town of Ayia Napa, I go diving in Limassol and catch summer's solstice celebrations in nearby Kurion. From there I head inland to Mount Olympus, en route to the Kikos Monastery. Via the divided capital of Nicosia, I cross into northern Cyprus and end my journey in Kyrenia. Holidaying in Cyprus, stay in beach resorts along the southern coast. This is Ayia Napa, which 30 or so years ago was just a quiet fishing village. Today, it couldn't be more different. If you're young or young at heart and you like wild parties and loud music, then this is the place to be. Most of the action in Ayia Napa is from midnight till dawn, but Nissi Bay's late afternoon beach party is a popular warm-up session for the long night of clubbing to come.
Nissi Bay, where's all the ravers out there?
Basically, we just come to Nissi Beach every day and go out into the centre at night time.
Not every night since we've been here. Try to tame it, but it's not always happening that way.
Try to get up quite early before dinner.
People get up at whatever stage of the day they can, whether it be morning, afternoon or evening. My friend right now is still in bed and look what time it is. It's 5:30.
This is how we do it. Here we go.
With large numbers of tourists hitting the beach here every year, holidaying in Ayia Napa requires a lot of stamina. Phone party MC and club promoter Mark Sudik is a regular here. What do people get up to?
Drinking, partying, dancing, going home with somebody they've met.
So Ayia Napa's got a bit of a reputation. I've actually heard it called Ayia Slapper.
Ayia Slapper. It's only called Ayia Slapper because it rhymes with Napa. But I would say that it's no different to going to anywhere in Spain, Turkey, Cyprus. It's a holiday resort full of young people. And young party people party hard.
It's a couple of miles from Ayia Napa's best beaches into town, so a lot of people hire scooters or quad bikes to get around. Of Ayia Napa's hundreds of bars, most are themed and don't get going until well after dark. So as Mark and I head off for our first drink, there are only a few people around.
And let's go in here for a drink. You've got to try the brandy sours. Brandy sour? Oh.
Fantastic, thank you. So this is the local speciality?
Yes.
Cheers. I like the lemon. It's actually not bad, it's better than I thought it would be.
It tastes better after the fourth one.
Getting around Cyprus isn't easy for the independent traveller, as the island attracts mostly package tourists ferried around in private coaches. Public buses are little used and infrequent. So do find out the timetable before you turn up at the bus stop, or you could be waiting for a long time. From Ayia Napa, I travel 75 miles down the coast, past the city of Limassol to Kurion. Pretty Pretty much the whole coastline en route is one long beach resort. Just outside Limassol, Kurion Beach is one of the loveliest in Cyprus. But my reason for coming here lies high above the beach on top of the cliffs. Thousand years ago, Kurion was one of the grandest city kingdoms in Cyprus, renowned all over the ancient Greek world. Many gods were worshipped here, but one of the most revered was Apollo in one of his roles as the god of the sun. While sun lovers soak up the rays all along the beaches of Cyprus, here at the ancient Greek ruins of Kurion, there's about to be a ceremony in memory of a very different kind of sun worship. Today is Midsummer's Day, the longest day of the year. On this day, the ancients believed that the sun god was his most powerful. Each year, to honour their ancestral culture, a group of local Greek Cypriots come here to the Temple of Apollo, recreating an ancient ceremony of worship that was practiced at the exact moment at midday when the sun reaches its highest point in the sky. So do you practice?
Not really. It's only done during the last couple of days, the practice. But it's been on for, the last few years that we keep doing this. So people have got used to it more or less, and we know what to expect and what to do.
So it looks good fun. Do you enjoy it?
Of course.
Very
and every
much.
year we are here just to give ourselves to the people of Cyprus and the visitors up to the Apollo Sanctuary. It's something for us, it's a great pleasure, and it's something very important for us as Greek Cypriots, because we are for 3,000 years up to this point.
Present on this island.
Yes.
2,000 to 3,000 years ago, Kurion in its heyday must have been a splendid sight. Its city centre, grand theatre and sacred temples thronged with people. But archaeological evidence suggests that all of this came to a sudden end. Just after dawn on the 21st of July, 365 AD, a month after the citizens had celebrated summer solstice, a massive earthquake is believed to have devastated Kurion and other cities throughout Cyprus. In spite of this, however, many Greek traditions are still practiced today. In ancient Greek times, throughout the Mediterranean, in order to spear fish, search for pearls, or harvest sponges, divers would go deep into the sea, holding their breath. Whilst today, of course, you can use scuba gear, breath-holding diving is still practiced. Known as free diving, it's one of the world's most extreme and dangerous sports. Cyprus is one of the best places for it, so whilst I'm here, I'm going to give it a go. I head out to sea from Limassol Beach with a group of Cypriot free divers, including the national record holder Kostas Kiliaki, one of the world's top free divers. How deep are we going to go?
We.
You, how far are you going today?
I would try about 70 meters.
70 metres, that's about 250 feet.
Yeah.
That's 250 feet down, 250 feet up, and holding your breath the whole time. That's crazy. Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, Jenna. It's just you and the blue. Only. So, I'm enjoying it.
We head well out to sea where it is deep enough for Kostas' 70-metre dive. The other divers, by contrast, will only be diving to around 20 metres. The secret of free diving is to be able to hold your breath for a long time. To do that, you need to relax. But that's easier said than done when you can feel yourself running out of air deep under the water. Well, I'm not sure quite how long I can hold my breath for. We'll just have to see. On my first dive, I can't relax, have difficulty equalising my ears and hardly get anywhere.
My ears, I couldn't. Because you did it.
I tried.
But you couldn't.
No, The others are able to slow down their heart rate to use up less air in their lungs and can get down to about 70 feet. People have died attempting such depths.
Just close your eyes and travel into the deep. It's such a magical journey that it's a meditation with your mind and your own body. It's a very unique and very special sensation.
Last week I managed to get to 21 meters. It's my record anyway. Felt great. Had different feelings that I never had in my life.
At last I get the hang of it myself and manage to get down to about 20 feet.
See the attraction of wanting to go deeper and deeper. It's really alluring. You just want to keep going. Almost addictive, I can imagine.
Later on this year, Kostas is hoping to get to 90 metres. This 70-metre dive, part of his training, is itself potentially dangerous. The deepest limitless free dive to date is 214 metres by Herbert Nitsch from Austria, but this was with weights.
From my knowledge, around the world there are about 20 divers, 20-25 divers maximum that they can dive more than 75, 80 meters.
I cannot even think about it. I mean, 70 meters, I would never attempt it myself. I'm currently doing just over 20, and 70, wow.
That is absolutely bananas. Congratulations, Kostas, that's great.
It's easy to spend all your time in Cyprus on the beach, but if you head inland, there are some great traditional villages and ancient monasteries to explore as well. The trip to Mount Olympus takes just an hour and a half. From there, we'll ride cross-country to the Kikos Monastery, where I'll be staying overnight. Well, it's certainly a first for me to stay in a monastery. Surprisingly, anyone can stay here, women included. There's no fixed price, you just make a donation. It's simple and comfortable, but you do need to make your own bed. I think we'll forget neat bed making for tonight. I'm pooped. Revered by the Greek Orthodox Christians of Cyprus, Kikos is the island's most famous monastery. It was founded at the end of the 11th century and contains extremely valuable religious relics. Showered with riches since its foundation nearly 1,000 years ago, Kikos today is the wealthiest monastery in all of Cyprus. I am now heading to the capital, Nicosia. There is only one minibus a day, so if you do come this way, make sure you are there in plenty of time so you don't miss it. Heading through the mountains, the journey to Nicosia takes a couple of hours, skirting the UN-patrolled buffer zone between Greek-dominated southern Cyprus and the breakaway Turkish Republic of northern Cyprus. It's a short walk through the city centre to the heart of where this once united capital had been ripped out during the war. In 1974, Turkey invaded Cyprus, an invasion strongly resisted by the Greek Cypriot people. Before 1974, this used to be one of the busiest streets in all of Nicosia. Now there's hardly anyone around. Not surprising, really, because today it's a dead end. The miles of barbed wire and military gun posts that disfigured Nicosia have been a permanent fixture since the war. And today, long after the fall of the Berlin Wall, it suffers from the dubious distinction of being the world's last divided capital city. Just a few decades ago, these abandoned shops and houses were buzzing with life. Until 2003, it was forbidden to cross the buffer zone. But happily, there are now a handful of places where you can.
This is the crossing point most used by tourists. And here is the former Ledra Palace Hotel, once Nicosia's poshest place to stay before it was stranded in the buffer zone. It's now the UN headquarters. According to the UN, Cyprus is still officially one country, though both sides require you to show your passport at each crossing, so make sure you don't forget yours.
Internationally unrecognised, except by Turkey, northern Cyprus gets less than 10% of the numbers of tourists that visit southern Cyprus. But for the curious traveller, there is plenty to discover in the less developed north. In particular, the most historic part of Old Nicosia is up here.
Hi. Can I try it?
And there's lots of traditional colour on the streets.
A Turkish speciality. It's made of tahini, sesame seeds and sugar, and a bizarre texture, but quite delicious. Can I get some, please? Thank you.
And by the way, up here it's a different currency. In the south it was Cyprus pounds, here it's Turkish lira. There's plenty else up here that's different from southern Cyprus, as I find out in the covered market.
Hello.
Taste Turkish delight?
Oh, yes, please. It's ironic how something as simple as the name of a sweet can be a political statement.
That's rose, lemon, pistachio, mint.
OK, well, I better try some.
Yes.
Delight is on sale in the south too, but there it is never called Turkish delight.
Some people think that or says that it's not Turkish delight, it's Greek delight or Cyprus delight. You cannot change it. It's 230 years. It started from in Istanbul as Turkish delight. You cannot change it.
Light-hearted though the banter is, the division between Greek and Turkish Cypriots goes back centuries. The Salamia Mosque, towering over the old city, was formerly a cathedral until it was originally transformed nearly 500 years ago when the Turkish Ottoman Empire conquered Cyprus. The interior is beautiful, but the real highlight of the building is the view from the roof. By special arrangement, the mosque caretaker takes me up there. From high above the city, it is hard to tell that it is divided. You can only just make out the buffer zone's barricades. There's been virtually no conflict since the War of 1974, and as Cyprus is so safe for travellers, the legacy of bitterness and distrust between the north and the south is not always obvious, but it does remain.
What a shame this lovely city is divided in two. The buffer zone down there runs like a scar through the whole of Cyprus. But at least there's hope for reconciliation now that the Greek and Turkish Cypriots are able to cross between north and south.
One of the most inspirational examples of reconciliation in Cyprus today is the bi-communal choir for peace, made up equally of Greek and Turkish Cypriot singers. The choir meet once a week for rehearsals in the buffer zone.
My name is Sulla and I'm Greek Cypriot. My name is Dehraye Shilada. I am Turkish Cypriot and we're very good friends. The best. Yes, yes, yes.
Uniquely, the choir has two conductors, a Greek Cypriot and a Turkish Cypriot. Moving on from Nicosia, the final leg of my journey takes me north on a half-an-hour journey to the coastal town of Kyrenia, where I'm hoping to catch the famously beautiful sunset over the ancient harbour.
I'm really looking forward to this. Fabulous hotel by the harbour. Cheap and cheerful. And the very best thing is apparently it's got a fantastic view from the bar.
The vista from the hotel bar is great, But to get the very best view of the sunset, I stroll along the waterfront to the high walls of the medieval castle.
It's so unbelievably incredibly beautiful here. I'm just exhilarated that I came to North Cyprus. There's something very peaceful and very beautiful and very oldly, worldly up here. It really is a treat. And the sun is just about to come down.
Crete is 160 miles wide, but only 40 miles across, and is home to nearly 500,000 Cretans.
Yeah, this is the way to travel. My first port of call is Hania, Crete's second largest city. In days gone by, it was fought over many times, but today tourism is big business and is all centered right here around the harbour front.
Many of the old townhouses along the waterfront have been converted into cafes, restaurants and traditional B&Bs. The narrow street and steep alleyways of the old quarter are filled with Venetian and Turkish architecture. And once you've negotiated the narrow alleyways and settled into your room,
you can see why Hania has been declared the spiritual capital of Crete. Time to explore.
Hania owes much of its charm today to the legacy of the Venetians. The Venetians were awarded Crete from the Roman Empire in 1204 for their help in the Holy Crusades.
They lavished the same architectural flair and attention to detail here as in Venice itself. In fact, the Venetians planned to turn narrow streets like this one into canals. Well, until the plans were scuppered by the Turks.
Despite all the fortresses the Venetians built, they in turn were invaded by the Ottomans in 1645, who stamped their own mark and beliefs on the city, converting churches to mosques and adding their own oriental details to buildings.
While in the time of the Turks and Venetians, spices and fabrics would have lined these streets, now traders vie for your euros with souvenirs.
The many restaurants that line the quayside are packed with tourists in the summer months, so the food here can be overpriced. In the centre of town, however, you'll have better luck with the Oasis Kebab Shop, a Hanian institution. Run by three brothers, it opened in 1967 and has only ever served one thing, souvlaki.
This place may not have great views, but the souvlaki is the best I've ever eaten. So good.
It's the best place in town.
Really?
Yeah, only the locals know about this place. But we have gyros for many years from the Turkish. It was like a kebab toner, but we changed it and we made these gyros from pork.
And it's the best I've ever eaten, for sure.
I know, that's why I'm here.
In Hania's old Turkish quarter, lots of bars have sprung up, and young Haniats consider this the place to hang out. But you will also find old bars such as Cafe Lidakia that offer a more traditional night out. Here, traditional Cretan music and dance is fast and warlike. Most dances are performed in a circle. In ancient times, dancers did this to seal themselves off from evil influences.
What's that dance about?
This dance is named Pedozali.
Yeah.
It's a war dance, an old dance. It was danced by the men before they go to the battle to get strength. Pedozali means 5 steps. It's not because the dance has 5 steps, but one explanation for this is that it was the 5th attempt of the Cretan people to get their freedom.
Ah, because so many invasions, right?
Yes.
I understand.
It's a fast dance, but it starts with a slow introduction and then it turns into fast.
Of course, no part is complete without the Greeks smashing plates. This ritual survives from the ancient custom of dealing with death. Smashing plates helped the participants to come to terms with the death of their loved ones. But nowadays, this tradition has turned into a celebration throughout Greece. It's easy to take for granted the survival over the centuries of Hania's old buildings. But in fact, a lot of buildings in the old town were destroyed the last time that the island was invaded, in the Battle of Crete during World War II in 1941.
Although Crete was only a small rustic island at the foot of southern Europe, it was of key strategic importance. By April 1941, Hitler had already invaded much of Europe, including mainland Greece. Now, all that stood between him and conquering further afield was Crete.
The Battle of Crete started just a few miles outside of the city of Hania, in the neighboring town of Malomé, and that's where I'm headed now. I've arranged to meet up with local Eleni Manaroli. Today, Malomé Cemetery is the resting place for 4,500 German soldiers. But at the time of the battle, it was one of Crete's main airfields.
So is that the Malomé airfield?
Exactly. That's Malomé Airfield, and that's the town of Malomé, right next to it, as you can see. And this is where the battle started. Crete is in a very strategic position in the Mediterranean. So the Germans were definitely interested in taking over the island. First, because it would give them a free way to move to Africa or Cyprus or other parts of the Mediterranean, but secondly, because they had taken over the rest of Greece. The Allies' forces on the island were a great threat to them, so they definitely had to take over the place. So if they took over the airfield, that meant that they could bring in troops and supplies, and it would make everything easier for them so they could take the whole island over.
And is it true that the Allies knew that the Germans were arriving?
Yeah, that's right. They knew some time before because they had managed to break the Enigma code, so they knew that an attack was planned for the 20th of May, 1941. And that's the reason why the commander of the Allied troops, a New Zealander, Freyberg, he had suggested that they destroy the airfield so that the Germans couldn't use it. But a question which hasn't been answered till this day is that why they denied his proposal. Nobody accepted anyway.
And what happened then?
On the 20th of May in the morning, 1941, 6:30 in the morning, a major bombing of the area started. And of course this brought panic and confusion, and huge clouds of dust covered the whole area around. And pretty soon after that, 7:30, German planes started coming in and gliders and brought paratroopers, and they started landing around the airfield. So the Allies, of course, had expected them, and they started shooting them as they were descending. Some they shot as soon as they landed. Some landed on olive trees around the area, by mistake, of course. So as soon as they got tangled in the branches, they got shut down. The Allies overestimated their strength or were overconfident, so they thought it was going to be an easy victory.
So it was like a massive airplane attack.
Oh, yes. It was the first major airborne invasion ever.
Eleni, and what happened then?
On the next morning, on the 21st, more and more troops and planes kept coming in. And the new parachutists came together with the ones that had survived from the previous day. And they attacked the Allies and forced them to retreat back all over this area.
But before securing Hania, they had to overcome the Crete Valley.
Myself a set of wheels, and I'm retracing the route that the advancing German soldiers took in the first few days of the Battle of Crete. It's very difficult to imagine, though, how much blood was shed here.
The Crete Valley has earned the title the Valley of a Million Oranges, after the huge numbers of orange trees that grow here.
Oranges are one of the many crops alongside olives and lemons grown by farmers in the area that have helped Cretans to gain the reputation of being amongst the healthiest eaters in the whole Europe. Actually, many of the islanders live to a very ripe old age. Valley of a Million Oranges is not the only nickname given to this area. It's also been dubbed Prison Valley.
An early success for the Germans was the capture of the prison here at Aya. The locals released the inmates and the Germans established it as their secure headquarters. It was to remain that way until the end of World War II.
Whilst the Germans were in control here, it was a different story in the surrounding hills and villages. The Germans hadn't reckoned on the Cretans putting up such a fight, and it was mayhem out there.
In the neighbouring village of Alikianos, a memorial honours the Cretan civilians who died defending their villages in the battle. In the first few days of the battle, as the Allies were retreating following their defeat at Malmö, the villages bravely fought, holding the Germans back for 7 vital days. It's said that every villager has a tale to tell about their family's heroism in the war.
Why was the fighting in the Kriti Valley so important?
For 2 basic reasons. First, it gave time to the Allied troops to retreat, and secondly, it was the first time in European history where civilians, old people, women, even young children, decided to resist the German army. Cretans had lost their freedom before, so they knew how important freedom is. So without any organization, they just grabbed whatever they could find from their houses, knives, sticks, old rifles from the Turkish occupation, and they came out from the surrounding hills and villages, and they actually fought the German army. The cost was actually very, very high. More than 6,500 men died, more than 1,000 women and almost 1,000 children lost their lives in those first few days of the fighting. They defended their freedom.
Cretan civilian Yanis Galanakis recounts his memories of the war. The Allies in retreat are deeply indebted to the bravery of the Cretan civilians, and a strong link between the nations remains today. For Allied veterans of the battle, memories of the 12 days of fighting remain vivid.
Each year, around the anniversary of the Battle of Crete, some of the Allied veterans come back to Crete and the sort of cemetery where we are to honour and remember the fallen comrades, and that's it.
1,497 British, New Zealand and Australian soldiers are laid to rest here. They were brought here at Suda Bay after the war from all over the island. Although the Battle of Crete ended in defeat for the Allies, it represented some of the most heroic fighting undertaken by them in the war.
After coming here this afternoon, I feel huge respect for the veterans and what they did. It's difficult to understand the situations they went through and the sacrifice they made.
So when the paratroopers landed, they were in the slit trenches there, and the first thing they knew was when a paratrooper stood at the end of the slit trench with an automatic gun and said, "For you, the war is over."
We just killed Germans. Terrible.
Another man and I, we came across this German chap by himself, and he brought out a photo about that size, I suppose. That was his mother and father group. He thought it was the finish for him, and he gave us equivalent to about 5 German marks in a note, and we cashed it later. So we had this man, and we could have taken him a prisoner, sure, but where were we going to do him? We're going to take him from Girani to the next prisoner of war camp, and that was Plantanius, and that was some miles. And we were buggered before that, let alone picking an extra man, taking one man back, and could have been shot in the meantime on the way there. So we just used our own judging. And the other man, who was quite a bit older than me, agreed. So it was wrong by military standards, sure. I'm capable of breaking the law, and I've just done it.
When we were prisoners, we were starving, and the Greek ladies came and threw the crust of bread, the old Greek bread, to us. The Germans used to beat them.
These Greek people, they've got the guts of Old Nick. They're as tough as they come.
And the Greek people are the bravest people in the world.
Leaving Suda Bay behind, I head onto the main road, which will take me through the Lefka Ori, or White Mountains, to the fishing village of Horasvakion, from where the Allies managed to escape off the island during and after the battle. Whilst nowadays climbers come from all over the world to enjoy the scenery and the challenge of scaling the White Mountains, it was a completely different matter in World War II.
It's hard to imagine what it must have been like to trek all the way from Hania down to the southern coast on foot. Because crossing the mountains they had practically no water, no shade, and hardly any food, but they just had to keep on going. Luckily for the Allies, the mountain terrain meant it was virtually impossible to use any tanks here. And it was also too rugged for the Germans to attempt to land any paratroopers, except in that area over there, dubbed the Saucer.
Fortunately, it was being defended by the Anzacs. If the Germans had managed to land, they would have blocked the Allied retreats. As it was, the troops were able to march to the coast in broad daylight. As the Allies in retreat had to abandon most of their possessions en route, this whole area of the Askefu Plateau became a goldmine for war paraphernalia. Overlooking the plateau is one of the most improbable war museums you'll ever pass by.
Cretan Giorgio Hatzidakis has spent his lifetime collecting relics from the war from the surrounding countryside.
Astifus Fagio Hanya Kritis.
Giorgio was just 10 years old when he saw German gliders crash land on the hill opposite his family home. Having narrowly escaped a German rocket attack that killed his brother and uncle outright, Giorgos has channeled his suffering into creating a lasting and unique memorial to the war. The Allied commanders gave the go-ahead for the Allied retreat on only the third day into the battle, so the first troops were ready to be evacuated from the south coast just 5 days later. Horasvakion is 50 miles from Suda Bay and a haven of tranquility now. But during the Battle of Crete, for 4 nights in a row, this harbour saw the mass evacuation of 15,000 troops by boat, most of them headed for Egypt.
By the 31st of May 1941, only 12 days after the German invasion, the Allies had been defeated and they surrendered Crete to the enemy. But not all of the soldiers had managed to escape in that time. Many had to hide out in the mountains for the remainder of the war.
The cost for both sides of the war was considerable. Over 3,500 British Commonwealth servicemen died in the battle, along with nearly 5,000 German soldiers. The Germans never again attempted an airborne invasion.
The loss of the Cretans was the mightiest, with over 8,000 men, women and children losing their lives in the war. Even Winston Churchill acknowledged their bravery when he stated, "Henceforth we shall not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks." I'm plotting my own escape today, but only along the coast. As well as the Battle of Crete route, thousands of walkers come each year to the island to trek the E4 Trail, which is part of a walk that runs through half of Europe.
In 3 days of trekking the E4 Trail from Horasvakion, I discovered the fishing villages of Lutro and Ayarumeli. I hiked through a gorge before reaching Paleochora, ending on the far westerly point of Elafenisi. Mountaineer Giorgio Antonakakis is joining me for the first section of the trail. Although the E4 European Walking Trail runs the length of Crete, I've decided to take 3 days to tackle some of its most spectacular points along the southwest coast.
So this is a part of the E4, the long-running European hiking trail, which starts from the Pyrenees, crosses the Alps, and arrives in northern Greece in Florina. From there, crosses all throughout Greece, jumps to Crete, and here we are at the southernmost point of the European hiking trail.
But I can see you're very fit.
Yes, I have been in many places around the world, hiking or climbing expeditions in France. And then it was Matterhorn.
Wow. On day 1, it takes 2 hours of easy walking from Horasvakion to reach the village of Lutro.
Wow! And what's that?
This is the end of Cape Muri,
Yeah.
where Lutro is located.
It's beautiful. What a nice little town.
Before tourism arrived in the 1970s, Lutro consisted of only a couple of fishermen's houses, cut off from the rest of the coast. The ferry now stops here, and many walkers choose to overnight here as well.
I've just fallen in love with this town. It's got such a peaceful atmosphere.
It's a wonderful place, very quiet, and as you can see, there are no roads, no cars, no traffic.
All right.
People that they want to visit Lutro, they come by boat or they walk to Lutro. As you can see, it's a wonderful place, surrounded by mountains, with small white houses and blue windows. And all the houses are like this, small, white and blue. And it's like a paradise here. Well, we have to go on 4 more hours to Yerumeli.
This is like the perfect place to build a castle, don't you think?
These ruins are from the medieval period, and there are many of them all around the island from different periods of our history. Some of them from the Venetian period, from the Turkish period.
Yeah.
There are many of them because they used to build them to protect the island from foreign invasions.
Yeah, I've heard that you Cretans are very protective with your own land.
Yes, this is true. And from there crosses all throughout Greece.
In the afternoon, you can walk from Lutro to Ayarumeli, but it takes around 5 hours.
And here we are, up to the southernmost point of the E4. So, this is your town for tonight.
Ayarumeli, no?
Ayarumeli.
Okay.
I have to go my way.
Oh, it's been wonderful to have you as a guide. I'm going to miss you very much.
Take care of yourself.
Okay, I might see you again on the top of a mountain. Kalispera. I've got a room reserved. My name is Adela. It's been a wonderful day, very exciting, but now I don't want to know anything else about rocks, ruins or villages. I just want to relax.
Locals advise walkers against starting the section of the E4 trail between Ayarumeli and Suya, as it's very unsafe in parts and takes at least 12 hours to complete. But it's possible to hire a boat or take a ferry west along the coast to the village of Suya.
The great thing about walking through a gorge is that you can enjoy a very different landscape. And there is plenty of shade as well to hide from the burning sun. Actually, this area is very well known for its 32 gorges. Lots to choose from. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
What are you taking pictures of?
I'm taking pictures of this interesting rock formation here. With the reds and the blacks in it. The reds are the irons and the blacks are magnesium. I suppose these were made many millions of years by the shift in plates here in Crete and also the earthquakes that they have here.
So where you are going?
I'm going to Paleochora.
Oh, that's great, because we're going there.
Oh, really?
Would you like to join us?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go.
So you know, in 1834 there was an English traveller, quite adventurous for these times. So he had a vision to walk all this part of the South Crete, and he went even to the most remote places. Because of him, all these antiquities, they came to the light.
Wow! This is beautiful.
We are in the ancient city of Lissos from a Greek-Roman period.
It takes just 1.5 hours to walk from Suya to Lissos. It was one of several ancient villages along the south coast that specialized in glassmaking, arrowheads and dyes, which they traded with Africans. One of the highlights at Lissos is the temple of Asclepios, the god of healing, dating back from the 3rd century BC. The temple has a pebble mosaic floor of geometric forms and animals, built by the early Christians. From Lissos, it's another 5 hours walk to Paleochora.
There's Paleochora.
Well, that's it. Finally, we made it. I can't wait to take my boots off.
Paleochora is a low-key resort, and most of the local food and wine here is traditional.
Today I'm heading to the far westerly point of the E4 trail, which is in Elafonisi. And I've heard there's the most beautiful beach in the whole area, and I think that's going to be just the perfect place to finish my trip.
The E4 trail from Paleochora to Elafonisi is a comfortable hike which will take about 4 hours.
So there's Elafonisi. What a view! As you can see, that little island over there is separated from the mainland only by a very small stretch, and the waters are so shallow you can easily wade across.
With its long expanses of fine sand and shallow water inlets, tourists come to Elafonisi from all over the island for a day out. But once a day trippers have left, you've pretty well got the beach to yourself.
I'm very surprised by Crete. The mountains and the sea have surpassed my expectations, and I've been captivated by its fascinating past. Even though Cretans are proud and protective, I felt very much at home. Maybe it's the Mediterranean lifestyle that set me up in the perfect mood to enjoy the whole experience, but in Crete I felt in the place I always wanted to be.